Draw a cherry blossom tree in alcohol markers, even if you think you have no drawing skills and you're brand new to alcohol markers. Let's get started.
It's color Christy.
These are the colors I'm using, but please feel free to use your own colors. As we go, I'll tell you what I'm using and you can find the equivalent in your own marker set. I'm using a really light gray here, and I'm just laying out my branch and where my branches will go. I want my branches to have what we call elbows, so they're not going to be just straight out. We want them to be sort of rickety, and don't worry about it looking exactly like mine. You want it to be unique, and every branch is totally unique. So now I'm just going in and drawing a darker line so you can see it and so I can actually see it. I like doing this in a light gray first because it gives me a base that I can see without being too dark, and I'm not allowing me to sketch over it if I don't like the color. This is just a really light, cool gray, but you can use a warm gray. You can use just about any gray that you want. And you can always add branches in later. So now I'm using a very, very light pink. And this is what I like to call chaotic drawing. I'm just drawing in little marks, keeping in mind that a cherry blossom has 4 petals, but we don't care if this looks perfect. This is an interpretation of a cherry blossom tree. So I'm just adding little blobs because every flower will be pointing in a different direction too. It's not all going to be cherry blossoms that are just 4 petals that you can see all the petals. We'll have some blooms and some flowers you can see from the side and things like that. So I'm just drawing chaotically. I'm clumping them together, making sure they're not so even. And then I'm taking a darker pink, and you can see the color code there, but it's fine if it's a different color. And I'm just drawing like where the middles would be. And same thing, I'm just drawing little blobs. I'm not worrying about it being perfect. And some of them will be pointing sideways, or there'll be blooms, so it doesn't have to be right in the middle. Some of them I'm putting in the middle, but this is totally chaotic. Like, you don't need any skill to do this. They're literally just little blobs of color that I'm adding in. I'm not even doing like a specific shape. I'm not doing circular or anything like that. Then I'm going to take an even darker color and I'm going to intensify the middle of the flowers and just the base of where I expect each flower to be. So if I think the flower is pointing sideways, then I might just do a little dot on the base of where I think that color would be. I hope that makes sense. And it's just chaotic. I'm just doing little tiny dots. And even if you miss one and you get a dot somewhere it's not supposed to be, this is a chaotic, cute little sketch, so don't worry about it being perfect. So I'm going in with my darkest pink and I'm just adding like little tiny dots where the stamen would be, so where the very base of the flower would be, so where the like black stamen would be coming out. And again, we're just letting this be chaotic. I'm just doing little dots. If you miss one or you do too much in one, just let it be chaotic. And I'm doing something similar with this dark green. This color is called Sage. It's from Artist Loft, and I'm just adding like where the leaves would be. And I'm not adding leaves to every flower. I'm just being totally chaotic with this. I'm just looking around the page and going, well, a leaf might look good there. And I'm using the brush tip here because you can get a nice pointed tip. And if you want to make like a leaf shape, you can, but I'm really not doing any sort of technique here. Some spots I'm just like coloring in behind the flowers. Some spots I'm just doing like a dot. Some spots I'm doing like a full leaf shape. Just go with the flow and do whatever feels good to you. And just keep going until you like what you're looking at. So here I'm just going in with a darker gray and I'm putting a little line underneath the branches. So as if there was like some texture on the branches and some shading. This is really just to define the branches a little bit more and make them stand out a little bit so that it actually looks like a branch and not just like a pencil mark basically behind the flowers. So just again, do what feels good here. I am adding some little chaotic lines to give the branches a little bit of texture, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to. I am adding a couple of extra little branches here and there just as I go. And again, there's no rhyme or reason to that. So this is the really fun part. I'm using a Copic FINELINER in 1.0 and I'm just going around each flower. So this is where it actually starts looking like maybe it might be a little piece of art. And this was honestly my favorite part. So keeping in mind that a cherry blossom has 3 branches and they're usually rounded. But when I talk chaos drawing, you're going to see here, this is what I mean by chaos drawing. I am not doing anything that looks like art here. I'm literally just doing like loops for the petals. I'm not like taking any time to think about it. And I think that's the important part of a project like this, is making sure that you're not overthinking it. Not every project has to look like realism. So in some spots I'm going in and doing like a 2 petals, sometimes I'm doing 3 petals, sometimes I'm doing 4. I'm just really trying to think about varying what I'm doing. So making bigger flowers and smaller flowers, and doing, if I've got one that has 4 petals, that I'm not doing one that has 4 petals like right next to it. So it's really just about making sure there's variety in all the different types. But they're really, like you can see, I'm not doing anything precise here. It's really just, I'm just squiggly lining it, if that's a word. And I do that throughout the whole thing. I really do like adding little buds. I don't know why, but adding buds to like anything that has flowers, it's just, I mean, have you ever seen something that had a full flower without also having a bud or a partially bloomed flower on it as well? So I like to call this like controlled chaos. A project like this is really nice when you're kind of just sick of doing things really precise. Like you just want to be creative and you don't really want to think about it too much. That's the one thing I really like about natural projects too, like flowers and grass and stuff like that. Nature is so random and it's so imperfect and it's not symmetrical. So it's nice when you can draw something like this and it's like, does it look like a cherry blossom tree? It doesn't look like a real one, but I mean, who knows, right? Because everything is so chaotic in nature. So it's really great for like if you just want to get creative and you don't really want to think about anything, you just want to maybe do something in your sketchbook, but you don't want to, you don't want to like really think about what you're making. And feel free to use any type of fine liner that you want here. I'm only using Copic because it's literally like I lose things all the time. This one I just happen to have on my desk. I'm not using it specifically because it's a certain line weight or anything. I just like looked over and it was there, so I used it. So use whatever you want. If you want to make this a little daintier, you can use a thinner fine liner. Oh, that was a pretty rough flower. I think at some point when I was drawing this, I actually kind of stopped thinking about the fact that I was supposed to be making petals. So they get a little more chaotic and they get more just like wiggly circles at some point. And then it snapped back into my brain like, hey, you need to actually make like a flower shape for this. But that's the nice thing about doing drawings like this, is that it kind of lets your brain wander. At some point I stopped thinking about the fact that I was drawing something and my mind just started wandering. And to me, that is the benefit of being creative and doing sketchbook projects and just having fun, chaotic, creative activities. So while you're continuing to do that, I will give you a little mini lesson in drawing. When you're using fine liners, it's best to use your thinner fine liners for when you're drawing things that are in the background, and you use thicker lines for when it's coming forward. So if I wanted to draw this and I wanted to make it look like, part of the tree was behind another part, then the one that I wanted to be in front would have the thick liner. The one that is supposed to be set back would have a thinner liner. So if you're drawing things like, a barn in a field and you have things in the background, you'll want to use a lighter fine liner. And for anything that's forward, you want to use a thick fine liner. And then if you're using them for shadows, oftentimes I will put a thicker liner under. So I'll line something like in, say, a micron 005, and then I'll, anywhere where there's a shadow, like under a roof line or under, or you know, like in a doorway or something, if there's supposed to be a shadow there, I might put a thicker fine liner like this one, the 1.0. So now let's get back to the drawing. I'm using a thinner fine liner. This is the micron 005. I'm using it for the branches just to make them look less, like I want the flowers to be the star of the show here. So I want them to stand out. I want them to be the thing that you notice first. I don't want you looking at it and going, wow, that's a great branch. I want you to look at it and go, oh, those are nice cherry blossoms. So I'm just adding a little bit of texture to the branches, and I'm adding a line underneath the branches. I don't even think I line all of it. It's really just a little bit to, you know, so that you can actually see that there's a branch there. And then I go in and add, you know, a little bit of texture, some dots and squigglies here and there, just to make it look like it's not a perfectly smooth branch. And then same thing with the leaves. So I want to define the leaves a tiny bit, but I also don't want them to be standing out too much, because the leaves are, it's like, you know, the cherry blossom is the star of the show, and then the leaf is the supporting actor. So you want to see it, but you don't want it to be the thing that stands out the most. And with this, again, I'm kind of being a little bit chaotic. I'm not really drawing like a specific leaf, but I am going in and adding, you know, some little details to the leaves and, you know, little round squigglies and stuff. But I'm not worried about following the exact marker line. Again, it's chaotic. I just want it to kind of be like the impression of the thing, not the actual thing. So when it's all done, it looks okay, and I like it. So I never want to say that like my stuff looks amazing, but I liked it, so I thought it was worthy of posting on YouTube. So take that, you know, however you want. So now I'm doing something that I like to do with alcohol markers. Because I'm a watercolor artist, when we're done a painting, we often will flick the paint just to give it a little bit of an effect. So I'm just taking my alcohol markers, my mid-tone and my light tone, and I'm just like of the pink, and I'm just kind of adding little dots, almost like the wind is blowing and some petals are sort of falling off of the branch. And then I last minute decided that I was going to add a little bit of brown to the branches. Tree branches are usually like more gray than they are brown. So that's what I did there. And now I'm adding just a little bit of darkness, a darker green to the leaves. You can do this if you want. It's just sometimes I look at it last minute and I go, maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do that. And that's what I'm doing here. So you can leave it the way it is, or you can add a little bit of dark green. I don't think it actually made enough of a difference to really be too concerned about it, but you know, I get in my head about it. So I hope you like this video. Leave any questions in the comments. And here are all of the colors that I used, so that if you wanted to write any of them down to see if you have them, or if you want to find equivalents, then at least you have it here as well. Bye for now. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.